Lesson 86 on page 138. And we continue today with the third and final lesson before we start the liturgy. Today I wanted to talk to you about the epistle and gospel readings. Epistle as a word might be a little bit misleading because in the Greek language we call the epistle apostolos. Apostolos is translated as apostle, and epistle is a translation of epistoli, which actually means a letter. So, because the epistle readings were epistles or epistoles or letters from Paul to the Ephesians, to the Galatians, to Timothy, all of those, but they were letters. In English, we call them epistles, but in Greek, we call it the apostolos or the apostles. So do not confuse the two. Both mean the same thing. Gospel is evangelion in Greek. The epistle and the gospel are chanted always, and that means always, not one exception, in melodic declamation or melodic recitation. In Greek, we call this kind of reading, emelis apangelia. Emelis, en melis, en melos, in melody, melodic. Apangelia, it's a recitation. Okay, apangelia is a recitation. So you recite reading fast on a tone or a note like the. You are following the scale of Gliton. You remember that when we taught the epistles, the apostolos? And you always read the stichos in exactly the same formula way. Adelphi is always the same formula way, in the same manner, and the ending or the τελική κατάληξης, the final cadence of the epistle, also has a very set melodic way or manner in which we chant it. Πάσα γη προσκύνησα το σάνσι και ψαλά το σάνσι, πρόσχομεν, αλλά αλλάξατε το Κυρίο πάσα η γη, Σοφία, προς Γαλάτας, προς Εφεσίους, προς Τίτων, προς Τιμόθεον, επιστολής Παύλου το ανάγνωσμα, πρόσχομεν, the priest says, and you continue. Adelphi, and then the rest of it goes on the or vu or pa sometimes, or even ni, depending on if you have a comma, an anotelia, which is kind of like a colon, and a period. Okay, and that guides you on how to make your cadences between Adelphi and the final cadence. And the final cadence is always going to be na 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 na. Babuga di 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 gabuga di ke di gabuga di. That's the formula, okay? That's the same for the epistle and the gospel, and it doesn't change ever. I strongly urge you to go and listen to the earliest recording we have of the Apostoliko Anagnosma, or the reading of the epistle, by Iakovos Nafpliodis, the greatest chanter we have caught on tape, Iakovos Nafpliodis. So I urge you to go on YouTube, search for his name, Apostoliko Anagnosma, and listen to it as many times as you can, especially if you are young. You should really be able to memorize the whole thing pretty easily, and I urge you to do that. I think that's going to be a very good help to you, because it is going to help you remember those formulas how to say the stichos, the verses, how to say the other fee, how to say the in between and the final cadence, okay? And that's always, and I keep saying that, and I mean it. If I tell you something that goes contrary to what any chanter of the Patriarchate tells you, you listen to them. You don't listen to me, okay? Because they are the real teachers. And that's one of those principles of the Patriarchal Psaltophiles that I wanted to share with you. Okay. Ο ιερέας εκφωνεί και ο ψάλτης ψάλλει. This has to do with the priest's declamations. The priest or the deacon declaims and the chanter chants. And I stress this time and time again because I've heard many priests chanting their declamations. And they should not be doing that. The priests should not chant the supplications in different modes. It's not allowed to chant in anything other than on the, either in diatonicon genus or in the chromatic genus of the second ichos. Nothing else. Nothing else. Sometimes some priests, when we chant the liturgy in plagal first mode, sometimes they chant the supplications on plagal first. But the traditional way of doing it is what I am going to be showing you very, very soon. The priests should not chant the supplications in different modes, again, or in a long, elaborate manner, but only in melodic recitation, which is very fast, on a tone, on a note, like we did the Apostolos, exactly the same way. Who chants which liturgy hymn has been regulated by Typikon. Both the priest and the chanter should adhere to the Typikon. It's not up to the priest, it's not up to you, the chanter, it's not up to the local bishop to change that stuff. Ancient patriarchal traditions, patriarchiki taxis, requires the priest to declaim on the and the chanter to respond on ni. And between ni and the, there is 1/5, one pentachord, or one tetraphonia. Okay, pentachord, penta is from 5, it means 5 chords, because if you think about it, when you play an instrument, every time you strike a chord, it's like you say a note. Ni, pa, vu, ga, the, 5 chords. But in between these 5 chords or 5 names, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4 intervals. So phony is a tone. Tetraphonia and pentachord is the same thing. It's from ni to the, or pa to ge. Okay? This fifth, this perfect fifth, sounds serious, imposing, and majestic, and you should preserve that fifth as best as you can and always adhere to it. That's the best, simplest, most majestic and imposing way. It has this imposing, majestic simplicity that is a hallmark for the patriarchal chanting tradition. And I would like you to hold that dear to your hearts and try to always respond. Priest on thee, and you are on ni. Let's go and see a diagram. Oh, but before I do that, 3 very important points. You are not church musicians, or at least I wouldn't like you to be just church musicians. You're not performers. You're not entertainers. You are psaltes. O psaltis, one psaltis, e psaltes, many psaltes. I would like you to think of yourselves and be proud and have this badge of honor of being psaltes, not church musicians, not entertainers. Okay, you can be all that outside of the church, but inside the church, I want you to think of yourselves that you have this higher ethos and ethical standards, and you call yourself Psaltis and be proud of it, because it's a very ancient institution, and you are a carrier of a very ancient and sacred art crafted by saints, like we said last time. Respect patriarchal taxes, and of course they be gone. But even taxes, you have to respect it. It's not up to you or your local priest to change it, or bishop. You need to respect it. And be a patriarchal psaltophile, which basically means that you let the patriarchal tradition be the final arbiter. The final say goes to the patriarchate. If you have any disagreements, any quarrels, let's not go by you, let's not go by me, let's not go by the bishop, let's go by the patriarchal chanting tradition. And that's what means to be a patriarchal psaltophile. I really hope you consider being a patriarchal psaltophile. Okay. You're familiar with that scale. Ni pavugadi ni zoike gavu pani panini. Etike anirini tu Kyriou deithomen, Kyrie eleison. Αντιλαβούς όσων ελέησον και διαφύλαξον ημάς ο Θεός της η χάριτη. Αμήν. Της Παναγίας Αχράντου υπερευλογημένης εν δόξου δεσποίνης ημών Θεοτόκου και η Παρθένου Μαρίας, and so on and so forth. I think you get the idea. The priest declaims on thee. The chanter responds on ni. This is the only time I'm going to write them down. When we go on to the liturgy, you're just going to see the text. You're not going to see the music. But the main idea is etike, eti. Remember this combination here with the oligon. The oligon just serves the ison. It gives it an emphasis, but nothing more. Etike, eti, anirini tu Kyriou deith. Nini tu Kyriou deithomen, Kyrie eleison. Okay, that's the majestic simplicity of the pentachord. The last thing I want to say is when it comes to the epistle or the gospel, you follow the kliton, which when placed on thee is going to change these intervals. If you remember, the kliton does nothing more than requiring this ga to be closer to thee and this vu closer to ga. So instead of saying thee ga vu, di gavu gadi gavu pani pavu gadi gavu gadi pasagi proskinisato sansi kepsalato sansi. Right, that's the kliton. And that's where you say the epistle, and that's where the gospel is said too. Sometimes, if you want, I don't suggest that, but I've heard many traditional chanters. Naigezani pasai proskinisato sansi kepsalato sansi proschomen alalaixate to Kyrio pasai Nizo και δι πάσαγι προσκυνήσατος άνσι και ψαλάτος άνσι. Okay? I personally like thee because my voice is not very high. I'm not a soprano. But if you want to say it on me, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes some priests instead of saying it in this the that, as you can see here, is diatonic, they say it on Clinton, I mean the supplications. Nani etiketinirini tu giriudei thomen digabudidi. Instead of giriudei thomen, okay, giriudei thomen, but still very fast on tone. With the digorgos chroniki agogii, which means the double gorgon tempo, very, very fast. And the accents of the syllables happen on the right words, no matter if you're in the diatonic or Clinton. And of course, you keep answering with the Kyrieleison on ni. That doesn't change on your part. The priest can do his job and say it either on Clinton or diatonic, on the, and you're always answering on plagal fourth from ni. Okay. This is something that I would like you to, if possible, memorize, in the sense that if I tell you which comes first, the Trisaion or the Apostolos, you say the Trisaion. Which comes first, the antiphona or the axion estin? And you say the antiphona. Which comes first, the Cheruvicon, which is the slow ita cheruvim, or the kinonikon, which is usually the eniteton gyrion ek ton uranon, alleluia, the one we've learned. Which one is first? The Cheruvicon. So this is a rough outline that you should make every effort possible to memorize. You shouldn't be trying to memorize it now, but when we go through the liturgy and we hit one of these milestones, if you remember it, come back to this list and say, okay, where am I at now? Am I here? Am I in the middle? Am I kind of like at the end? And that is going to help you orient and be a better chanter by memorizing this sequence. And by the way, if I asked you, is this sequence part of taxis or typicon? What would you answer? Is that an issue of taxis? Is that a softer oral kind of tradition, or are these things set? These things are set on stone, so these are part of typicon. So this sequence, the hymns themselves, and when we say them, are part of typicon. The fact that, let's say, Δεύτε προσκυνήσομεν, or the Trisaion, is always chanted in Ichos second, in second mode, this is taxis. Some chanters sometimes chanted in other Ichos, but that's outside of the tradition. So the fact that Trisaion is right here after Mikrisodos and before Apostolos, that's a matter of typicon. That it is chanted always in second mode, it's an issue of taxis, okay, which is a softer oral tradition, not really set on stone, but we should still respect it. Okay, I think that we covered everything we need, and you should be very proud of yourselves. We are done with half the book, which is the method, and we are starting the liturgy. So next time we will officially commence on learning the liturgy. Congratulations. All right, see you next time.